The forgotten art of layering samples, where the bass line from one record, horns from another, and drums seamlessly blend to create something special, is how legendary tracks like De La Soul's I Know and Tribe Called Quest's award tour came together. And in this video, we're going to break down how Principal and Q-Tip used layering to create those tracks. Then using the same techniques and some tools that weren't available at the time, plus stems from my pack Soul Food Vol.1, I'll show you how to create something brand new with a similar vibe. Before we get into those breakdowns though, we need to take it way back to the origins of sampling. In the 1960s, DJs started experimenting with two turntables, blending records and isolating breaks, those drum-heavy sections that made dancers go wild. And this laid the groundwork for what would eventually become hip-hop. By the 70s, Bronx pioneers like DJ Herc took this one step further. They looped these breaks live to keep the energy going at block parties, giving birth to the breakbeat culture. But when hip-hop producers entered the picture in the 80s, they didn't stop at looping. They started layering, stacking sounds from different records that were much fuller and more dynamic. In the 80s, the technology started to catch up the creativity. Sampling became possible thanks to machines like the EMU SP12 and its successor, the SP1200. And these samplers gave producers the chance to chop, pitch, and manipulate samples in a way they couldn't do before. And the SP1200 became iconic. Its gritty 12-bit sound and its limited sample time forced producers to get really creative and just made beats that absolutely smacked. And then came the Akai series, first the MPC 60, and then later on the MPC 2000. Producers could now chop samples with precision, layer them seamlessly, and play beats like instrumentals. The late 80s and 90s became the golden era of hip-hop, and with it came the art of layering samples. Producers weren't satisfied with layering a single break anymore. They really started to stack sounds. By carefully pitching, filtering, and arranging these layers, they were able to take sounds from multiple records and make something that sounded seamless. And tracks like De La Soul's I Know and Tribe Called Quest's award tour are perfect examples of this. So let's have a look at I Know first. The track itself contains 5 samples. There's 2 layers of drums, one from Lee Dorsey's Get Out of My Life Woman, and the other from Sly and the Family Stone's Sing a Simple Song. Then you've got a 2-bar guitar loop from the Mad Lads' Make This Young Lady Mine. The bass comes from Steely Dan's Peg. And finally, this whistling from Otis Redding's Sitting on the Dock of the Bay. And as you can see, to make this work, they had to pitch shift certain samples. They also filtered elements out of the different samples so they all sounded good together. And next, let's have a look at a war tour from Tribe Called Quest. And overall, it contains 7 samples. The main keys come from Weldon Irvin's We Getting Down. The drums are chopped from Sons of Champlin's You Can Fly. While the main guitar riff comes from Charles Erland's Low Down. And the bass is actually an interpolation of Jade's Don't Walk Away, but I'm just using the sample itself to show you what that sounds like. And then finally, there's a B section that uses Milt Jackson's Alinga. Completely different sections and make them sound completely seamless together. Now, as we moved into the 2000s, technology started to change. Doors like FL Studio, Logic Pro, and Ableton gave producers plugins and tools to make completely new sounds. But in that shift, something got lost. Here's the thing though, with the tools that we have today, layering samples can be even more powerful. Stem separation allows us to split songs into individual parts, and then the modern DAWs allow us to blend those sounds seamlessly. Next, I want to show you how you can use these tools to create a beat with a similar vibe. And I'll be using stems from my pack Soul Food Vol.1 to show you how you can do this with today's workflow. So first things first, I headed over to Tracklib because I wanted to find a drum loop, and I stumbled upon this one. And there was 2 bars that I wanted to loop. So I want to get this perfectly on the start of the loop. Stand up! And then I've got my tempo, so all I've got to do is speed that up a little bit. And it should loop perfectly. And then what I want to do is I only want the drums. So I'm going to use the stem splitter inside of Logic. It's going to split up the vocals, drums, bass, and everything else. And all I want are the drums, so I can delete all of the other channels from there. And yeah, it's almost perfect this time. Doesn't always work amazingly, but yeah, that sounds great. Next up, I've got this sample from Soul Food Vol.1, my sample pack. And there's a little 4-bar loop that I wanted to take from this, just looping round again and again. So I just want to chop that perfectly so it loops nicely. And it's a little bit faster than this, so I'm going to slow that down. And loop that. Yeah, and also wanted to filter that out, so I've taken out some of the highs and some of the lows. When you put that with the drums, it's sounding pretty nice. It's a good start for sure. There's also this little bit further on in the sample, which is like a little horn stab or a horn part, which I wanted to take and put in kind of in the background. So again, I'm going to filter that a little bit more, so it's kind of like just an additional element. So that's without the EQ or the filter. Just make sure that's in time, as I had stretched the other one. Then once we put the EQ on, get rid of all of the lows. Turn it down a little bit, it's a little bit too high in the mix. Add a fade to the end of that so it doesn't cut out so abruptly. And also a little bit of reverb. Next up came the bass. Again, this one's from Track Clip. There's a really cool little bass line. I wanted to chop this up. It didn't quite fit with the sample as is. And what I did with this to make it fit is I individually chopped the notes and I transposed those so they went with the chords. If you look in the top left there, you can see -1 for that first one, 1, then -3, -5, just to create a completely different kind of bass riff from before. And when you hear the two together, that's working perfectly now. And then next, I wanted to add a little vocal sample. Again, this one's from Track Clip.
Why I'm back.
There's something in the background, a little eerie vocal. So I took this and I chopped it into a few pieces.
I've seen through my fears.
And again on there you've got an EQ just filtering out the lows and the highs and a really big reverb. So like 50% wet. And then when you play everything together, this is what it sounded like. Yeah, it was quite a quick one. Just an example of how you can do it using loops from my pack or from Track Clip, which is amazing for stuff like this, and how easy it is to just like get an idea going. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I hope there's a few techniques that you can take from this video for when you're making your own beats. And if you need something to get you going, you can grab my pack Soul Food Vol.1, full of samples to inspire you, or you can check out my free taster pack for midis, one-shots and loops. Both of the links for those are in the description. And I've also just started my own Discord where I'm building a community of producers who are looking to learn, share samples, and just a friendly place for producers to come. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments if there's any other producers or techniques you'd like me to break down in future videos.